Here. All right. Looking good. Check, check, check. We've got it live. The mic is hot and it's hot outside. It's warming up here in the Midwest. Actually, today, I believe it's in the 80s or in the 90s. So we're finally getting that summer weather here in the Midwest. I want to welcome everybody to the show. Today, we're going to be talking about some of the Q&A that I've gotten from the Breath Club. The Breath Club is a Patreon club. It's a club on Patreon, and it's dedicated to using your breathing. It's basically the greatest club of all time when it comes to breath work. So this club started in 2020, back when I was doing a ton of breath work workshops and sessions in public, and of course during that time we couldn't do anything in public, so we went online. And what actually came out of that was just an amazing community of people who are interested in how their breathing affects everything. So your breathing is related to every other function, pretty much, of your body. And the relationship that you have with your nervous system affects the relationship that you have with everybody else. So this is what we focus on in the Breath Club. It's only $5 to join. And today I had a little mix up with the times. Normally we do our breath session after the YouTube live each month. This month we did it before because I have 2 times listed. so if you're in the Breath Club and you went to the first one, guess what? We're going to have a bonus one. So after this, we're going to have a breath party. So we call them breath parties. So you can do breath work for a lot of different reasons. And if you've read my books, let's see here, there's Language of Breath. If you're in the language, we're still in the Language of Breath Breathworker School right now. This one over here and one there. That is my first one that came out in 2020. But if you've read my books, you know that I'm suspect of people who just focus on only superventilation and just breathe hard, breathe hard, breathe hard. There's so much more to breath than just that. We're going to talk about some of those things today, specifically how to breathe when you're doing weightlifting. This is something that I've been doing. I've been a weightlifter for, let's see, 14 years, 15 years, I think 15 years of weight training under my belt. I wish it were more, but I was a lazy sack as a child and as a young person. So I didn't do those whenever I should have when I was a kid. But anyway, we're going to talk about all the different ways that breathing influences us. And you have to remember it. The thing is, when I talk about breath parties, though, there's nothing wrong with feeling good, right? So the beauty behind superventilation and over breathing and those types of breath, things we might consider to be altered states, they're there, right? They're there when you need them. They're oh, that was a great little bit of breath work I just did there. But so sometimes you got to sneeze. But when it comes to those types of breath work, they're there when you need them, and they're there because there are times that you just need to feel good, right? There's some of those days, right? Some days, and it's been one of the greatest things for especially people who are going through stressful times, people who are trying to get over addictions, recovering from painful situations, anxiety, things like that. It's fantastic for those things. It's not for everybody though. And so this is why when in the Language of Breath, Breathworker School, we do an extensive training. And I'm excited. We're in the last month of the training for this year. We're thinking about opening up for 2 classes next year. The school is growing, and the demand and the need for what we have to offer is growing. So we're more information is going to be coming out on that in the next few months. But we've got questions. We've got questions from the audience. And today we're going to talk about, first of all, the questions from the Breath Club, because if you join the Breath Club, it's only $5 for the first tier. As you go up in the tiers, you get other perks like the monthly breath tip. This month's monthly breath tip, we talk about actually something that we're talking about today in the Q&A because it just so happens to overlap. And then you also get access to one of my online courses. There's all kinds of stuff you get as you go up in the tiers. So I would like to invite you to go to Midwestern Method on Patreon and join, and then we'll have a short breath session after this. But let's get into it. Hey, let me know where you're coming from. Let me know where you're from. Is it hot where you are right now? What time of day is it there? I'm always interested in knowing a little bit about the people that are watching. So if you, hey, check in with me, say hello, let me know, what do you think about these concepts? Because the first one we're going to talk about is how to breathe while weightlifting. And actually, I was talking to one of my students in the language of breath. He is a boxer here in the Chicago area, and he is a personal trainer. He is a person who is going to be a rising star. And we were talking about this earlier today because of some of the discussions that they've been having in his gym. But I did get a question from Gary, and I appreciate this question about weightlifting. What is the best way to breathe in the gym when you're weightlifting? Okay, so this is one of those questions that I love because, well, it overlaps two of the things that I love very much, weightlifting and breathing. But it's also one of those questions that it's no one likes the answer to the question. Okay, so there is a hierarchy of needs when it comes to breathing, especially whenever it depends on what you're doing. So when you're breathing and you're sitting here just in everyday life, there is a hierarchy there, right? And the hierarchy there is like, okay, so because I'm just sitting here right now, I don't have any problems with structural integrity of my body. I mean, maybe I'm slouching, maybe I need to work on my posture or something like that. But when it comes down to in everyday breathing, one of the things that, yes, as you breathe, you help to support your core, but that's not the primary thing you're thinking about right now. Like right now, as I'm sitting here, or as you're sitting, wherever you're sitting, you're probably not thinking about bracing your core. But in physical pursuits, you do, right? And so this is why when we train people in the breath wave, right? So and this is where actually a lot of times people who are enthusiasts in breath work, where we need to learn that there's different times for different things, right? So you're going to see, for instance, a weightlifter who is weightlifting, and a lot of times the very first thing you notice is they stop breathing. What is with that, right? And so one of the things that is on the hierarchy of needs up at the top is actually to breathe, right? So one of the things I say is the first thing when I'm talking to a person when it comes to weight training and breathing, I don't care as much on the specifics. I do care that you are breathing. So the first and foremost, when you're weight training, breathing, the fact that you actually do breathe is a good thing. Now, the reason why this is even a conversation when it comes to weight training is because so many people stop breathing. And the reason why that happens is because intuitively we understand that we need to create intra-abdominal pressure to brace our core. That's sort of something that sort of naturally a human being sort of knows without maybe intellectually understanding it. And then you can see this whenever you go to any gym. You see all these people, they're holding their breath while they're lifting, and they don't realize that's what they're doing. A lot of people don't even realize they're not breathing when they're lifting weights, but that's what they're doing. And so there's nothing actually wrong with stopping breathing a little bit. Like, for instance, when you're doing Olympic lifts like deadlift, bench press, squat, doing a Valsalva maneuver during a heavy lift is a pretty normal thing. People a lot of times will do that. It's not the greatest thing to do all the time, but it's something that we're creating some intra-abdominal pressure, some real powerful intra-abdominal pressure, and that helps to stabilize our spine. Because what happens is you've got the diaphragm that's coming down whenever it's coming down when you're inhaling, and then you hold. So it's creating more pressure there. And so when it comes down to it, I say, okay, so for the vast majority of your lifts, even though you're going to want to do that, that's sort of a natural thing because it's a safety thing. Try to breathe while you're still doing weight training. Like if you're standing there doing, let's say you're doing military press, right? You're pumping up the shoulders, and you're doing that standing, or even if you're doing it seated, intuitively, your brain understands, hey, the spine is taking on a lot more load right now, so we have to add more stability. And so one of the things that we train people to do is to exhale, but to exhale while providing some resistance in your exhale. So you might see a person do, they're lifting, right? or right, adding some resistance because we're trying to take advantage as much as we can of the intra-abdominal pressure without completely stopping the breathing. Now, some people say, am I supposed to, like if I'm doing a push-up, am I supposed to inhale or exhale when I'm doing the pushing part, or how am I supposed to do that? And here's the crazy thing. So I could make a case, and there's like a case that would probably be the strongest case as to what to do. But when it comes down to it, the fact that you're breathing is paramount. That's great. That's gonna actually increase your reps over time. It's going to keep you from passing out while working out. It's going to keep your heart rate from getting out of control. And so there's a lot of good things if you actually just at least breathe. and then from there, think about for the vast majority of your lifts, are you doing Olympic lifts? If you're doing lifts that are very, very power lifts, right? Then we're utilizing that intra-abdominal pressure a little bit more. But let's suppose you're doing arm curls or you're doing seated pull downs, right? Lateral pull downs. It doesn't really make a huge difference if you're inhaling or exhaling on whatever part of the motion. What you're wanting to do is sort of feel it out for yourself. And I will say that what's really funny is like when I do pull-ups, I will do the pull-up. I'm usually exhaling as I'm coming up and inhaling as I'm coming down. And, it's just something I notice. It's like, okay, that seems to be what works best for me. And I'm not needing that intra-abdominal pressure. I'm not really having to worry so much about bracing the core because, I'm just hanging there. And it just seems to be more natural. What I see sometimes people get into functional breath, and believe me, we teach breath mechanics and language of breath. It's important, it's essential, but sometimes a person gets so hyper fixated on that the function that they're actually there doing, it suffers. And it's okay to let it suffer a little at first, but it shouldn't be something that really impedes your workouts. So here's the thing. The most important thing is that you actually breathe. Okay. Using intra-abdominal pressure to brace your core with holds on incredibly heavy lifts is a good idea. Doing that for reps is not a good idea. Okay. So again, it's a deadlift. I'm holding. It's only a few seconds. It's not like it makes a huge difference. And as far as my respiratory system impact on my energy systems, but it does help a lot more with my core strength. I've even had some people say, hey, should I be only nasal or should I be how should I breathe? Well, it depends on the activity. If you're swimming at the gym, you're going to be mouth breathing, right? And this is one of the reasons why it's so essential to learn functional breathing in everyday life. So you get that mind-body connection. You sort of have that in your muscle memory, so to speak. So it's sort of natural, even if you have to switch over to mouth breathing, like in the case of a swimmer. So this is one of those kinds of questions where I have to say it sort of depends. You do need to make sure that you're breathing. That's the most paramount thing. And you need to think, am I bracing? Do I need that extra intra-abdominal pressure to brace my core? If that's the case, then you will want to try to have a little bit more air when you're in the part of the motion where you need the most bracing. And that can mean either holding your breath if it's only just 1 or 2 reps, even 2 reps though, I would say, take a breath between, but it could be holding your breath. It could be slowing the breath down using your mouth. This is something that's common in boxers, striking sports, kickboxing, all these other things where you actually hear them go, right? So there's multiple reasons for that, but one of them, one great thing about it is that it can help with that bracing. All right. So thank you so much, Gary, for that question. The next one has to do with a study that came out recently, and they just wanted me to talk about it. So thank you, Lisa, for this question. The breath footprint, or not footprint, but fingerprint. I wrote it down here as footprint, but I know that it was fingerprint. So recently, actually just last week, I think it was, there was a paper that was published that shows that each of us have our own unique breathing pattern. And this is something that is not a huge surprise if you've been following my work over the past 5 years. There is a concept that we all come off an assembly line, and there's like a normal way that your heart's supposed to beat, and a normal way that your breathing is supposed to be, and and don't get me wrong, there are certainly um, consistent things that you will find across populations. But there is variation. There's like so much variation in our species. And one of the ways that we vary a lot is our breath, just our overall breathing patterns. Now, this blows the whole, like a lot of people think that CO2 is the primary reason for breathing, which, this is kind of like, well, if it were, maybe we would all have a far more uniform breath pattern. It's not really that way. Your brain is a predictive and reactive organ, and it's always trying to predict what your future metabolic needs are. So it's saying, hey, what's coming up? Is there a lion that is I'm about to chase a lion? Is that what it is? Or, is there going to be some kind of like crazy, or am I going to be chasing after the, I don't know, hamburger machine? I don't know, is that a cow or a bison? But basically, like, your brain predicts this, and so that's going to change your breathing pattern. Well, I guess it's no big surprise that each person has a variation that's unique to them. And in this study, they were able to identify people up to 96% accuracy, which is insane. That's incredible, right? So it quite literally is a parallel to your fingerprint. One of the things they noticed a few things that should not be a big surprise. They noticed correlations between your breath fingerprint and your state, right? So if a person came in reporting, hey, I suffer from a lot of anxiety, or I'm suffering from depression, or some of these things, they noticed similarities between those breath fingerprints and similarities between other people's breaths and fingerprints. And actually, it's funny, in the study, in the comments, there was this part where the person says, we now realize that there is a relationship between a person's state and then the way that they breathe. We wonder if we change the way we breathe, we could change a person's state. And of course, we've been saying this in the world of breath work for I don't know how long. But hey, you know what? It's nice to see the science as we continue to progress. We've known this for a long time. The thing that we really haven't known is just that there's a breath fingerprint. That's kind of mind blowing, right? So they said it was better than voice recognition. Wow. Now, a few things that they couldn't account for was if a person was a mouth breather. So if you're a mouth breather, I guess the things were up your nose there, and so they only were able to determine like the nasal breathing patterns. Go figure. Anyway, but that was how that worked. And so, yeah, I find it to be, and I appreciate, Lisa, I appreciate you bringing up this question, or at least just this topic. I find it to be really fascinating. And this month's breath tip, in the language or in the breath club, I talk about some of the things that I've sort of extrapolated from this, and how a person should apply it to their lives. One of those is that breathing and breath work should not be something you just relegate to the morning or the evening. Okay. Your state is influenced by all the things that happen throughout the day. It's not just influenced by, I did my morning breath work session, I'm set for the whole day. I remember, I don't know how many people still do reach out to me about this. And it always was about the Wim Hof method. And I think it's because they make all these claims, right? Because the Wim Hof people, I was part of it for a long time. And there's all these claims about, here's all the things that this breathing, will do, right? So if you breathe and then you hold your breath, and it's just like a cure-all almost. And there were people that would come up to me and say, how long do I get these effects each day, right? So how long, if I do this session, right? So in the Wim Hof stuff, it's like, okay, so I'm doing, and again, Wim Hof did not invent this, even though he says, oh, I got it from nature or whatever. It was, this is stuff that's been going on in yogic breathing for, thousands of years. So you're doing Bhastrika Kumbhaka Pranayama, essentially. So a person would say, how long does that affect me, right? How long do I get to keep the positive effects of XYZ, of this breathing technique? And the answer actually is, well, up until the next thing happens. And let me, it's kind of and this goes back to what I was saying before. Your brain is a predictive and reactive organ. You can do whatever you think you want to do, right? And then if suddenly the house catches on fire, right? It's not like the peace that you got from that session somehow you're just going to stay that peaceful and placid, and you're not going to worry so much about the fire. You're still going to have autonomic nervous system shifts. You're still going to have state shifts and all those things. I think a lot of the time a person you could say at least though, okay, maybe I woke up in a bad mood and I do a session of breath work. At least I'm sort of resetting my baseline, and that's fair, but to say that you're going to keep that peaceful feeling if something crazy happens afterwards, you're constantly adjusting, right? So there's this constant adjustment of your nervous system. And so this is why it's essential to check in with your breath all throughout the day. It's essential to, work with yourself as you go forward throughout the day, because there's always this part of you that loves you very much. It's always trying to protect you. It's always trying to keep you safe. It's always trying to push you towards what it believes is the best thing for you. And it will change your emotional state, and therefore it will change your physiological state. So it's all connected. And because of that, you need to check in. You can't just say, well, I did my morning session and I'm set, because every part of you is dynamic. Like there's no part of the human organism that is like, okay, we're fixed for the next 24 hours. There will be no change. That's just not how it works. So this study that came out, and Lisa, thank you again for this topic. It really is. It doesn't necessarily say, that, I think what it is saying and what it points to is so profound that it just makes sense. It's like, okay, so this means that you should check in with yourself throughout the day, because these patterns that we have are adaptive patterns. They're learned patterns over long periods of time. Okay. Doesn't mean they're wrong. Doesn't mean they're right. It just means that just like your personality is unique to you, just like a lot of these things are unique to you, they're that way because this unconscious part of you that's been learning everything since you came into this world, and it learns based off of all of your interactions and all these things. It is trying to keep you in the best possible state, and it's going to develop patterns. And it does this with movement patterns, and apparently it does this with breathing patterns, so that you have this sort of unique breathing pattern all to yourself, which is pretty fascinating. It's pretty fascinating. And the fact that they were able to identify a person 95 or 96% accuracy is just absolutely amazing. So out of all the patterns that we develop, I don't know of one other than literally the patterns that we have on our fingernails or our fingers tips. I don't know of anything else that is that identifiable other than our DNA or, sequencing and things like that. As far as movement patterns, I don't think I don't know. Maybe there's a way to test that where we could look at our movement patterns to get that good of a read on a person and say, okay, and I will say some people is more than others. Like with myself, because I have knee problems, I'm sure a person can say, okay, Jesse's been here. My son he's always teasing me because I have bad knees. So I tore both of my meniscuses, right and left knee. I have both of those are torn meniscuses. And I've been very fortunate that as long as I'm not running and doing like high impact stuff, and as long as I continue to do leg day, can't get out of doing leg day, right? But as long as I keep doing those things, I have no problems. I have no pain. I used to do a lot of HIIT a lot of hit. And I still teach hit sometimes, but I try to really modify. And then whenever I did that, man, I was constantly in pain. So and even if I walk a lot, even if I'm doing a lot of hiking and walking, I can have some struggle with the pain. So that's why when I do my cardio, it's on the bike. So my wife got us a Peloton bike, and she was like, "Yeah, I'm going to use this thing." And then I don't know if anybody in the audience can relate to this. I ended up inheriting the Peloton bike. She is no longer interested, and I'm like, "Well, we spent all this money. I'm just gonna do the Peloton." but actually, it's a great way for me to do cardio. And there's my ringing endorsement. I won't pay the monthly fee though. Like, I'm not going to pay $50 for Peloton for the women to tell me, pedal harder or whatever. As good as they are at telling people to pedal harder, I'm just sitting there. Like, I turned it off, and it's just a stationary bike now with a really nice screen on it that I can't use. Have you ever, I wish I could figure out how to jailbreak that screen or figure out how to like maneuver it so I can play video games on it or something like that. I would do so much more cardio if that screen would actually work, but I don't want to pay $50 or I don't even know what it is. Like, it's just ridiculous to me to pay that much money. And I already know, hey, I'm going to be doing interval training. Like, it's not hard for me to do that. I put on my jams. You know what I'm saying? Do you ever put on your jam? What are your jams, people? What are your jams for working out? I myself I'm a big fan of metal. Okay. So metal is not the only genre that I listen to, but when I'm working out, I like metal. I like Viking. Like, if it's like what is it? Donheim or some of those. Oh, what are the other ones? Basically anything off the Viking soundtrack, I'll throw in there and I'll listen to while I'm working out. Stuff that's going to bring out those primal urges. I feel like my testosterone doubles whenever I do it. And then if there is Viking metal, right? If I can find some good, and the thing is, I don't remember the names of these bands. It's like, I think one of them, I have no idea what these names is. Like, they're not even in English characters. So I'm like, okay, this is great. And so I'll listen to Viking metal as I work out, and hey, it brings it out. Nobody wants to share your workout music with me. All right, that's okay. So, hey, here we are. It is the 17th. Today is a big day in the Breath Club because this is our monthly. This is when all the sessions come out. This is when we do this Q&A. This is when we do our breath parties. So I had a mess up on my schedule. So I put the breath party after this, which is what we usually do. But then I made a calendar invite, which was for the hour before this. So, and hey, you know what we're going to do? We're going to have two parties. What's wrong with having two parties? Nothing's wrong with having two parties. We can have two parties in one day, right? So we had a really awesome breath session. I got to say, it was a really powerful breath session right before this. And then we're going to have a nice breath session after this one. So I'm going to log off of here in 30 minutes. We are going to meet up. If you're in the Breath Club, you will get a notification that we're going on, and you'll get a link for the Breath Party. If you're not in the Breath Club yet, it's only $5 a month to join, which is like $5 just to join a breath session is pretty awesome, let alone you get access to my entire library of over 100 different sessions using different techniques, music, all kinds of different amazing things, all perfectly curated for different purposes, some for sleep, some for CO2 tolerance, some for heart rate variability, some for just feeling amazing. And it's only $5 a month. So what you want to do is you go to patreon.com/Midwestern Method. You can find the link in the landing page of this YouTube channel, and you hop in there. You say, "Hey, I'm gonna get into this." I will send you a welcome note, and I'll say, "Hey, how's it going?" And it literally is me. I try to personally reach out to every single person who joins at any paid level. I like to personally reach out and have a conversation with you. So if you'd like to do that sort of thing, head over to patreon.com/Midwestern Method. And I will see you in 30 minutes when we get into the second. So we're doing a bonus, I guess. It's a bonus breath party. I will see you in 30 minutes. Thanks for sticking around for this chat. I'll see you next time.